Apologies for the turbo stall. That was a bit of a long one. It's on me. Alright, let me get my headphones on. Oh, I wanted to do this. Well, maybe it's a later stream thing, we'll see. I have these tier lists. Well, they're not really tier lists, because I don't really think tier lists work for a game like Risk Rain. There's just too much context and continuity issues between runs and stuff. Basically, tier lists trying to work around that fact and to put context into them. It kind of worked, but I'm gonna make it a video eventually because I think it'll be good content. I was gonna do like a talk about each item as I go through. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting set up here still. Drop the start image and do a prediction. Loud ass phone drop, sorry. Wrong. Okay, perfect. Okay. This will make for good background for the Risk Rain 2 runs, I think. Alright. Oh, I don't have a hairband. That's fine. Let it ride. Oh, very pink captain, good god. Oh, right. That's not gonna make much of a difference to me. Just pick 2 random ones. Like that. Sure. Okay. Really settle in here. Oh, I don't even have my thing set up for recording. What am I doing? SMH my head. You guys don't get to see. Because I'm just... I have to put this up when I'm like tabbing out of Risk Rain 2 because I'm just recording, or not recording, but the stream is just showing the what the stream box is giving, or the display box or whatever it's called. I don't remember. Me and Cody have started a route series, challenges and stuff. It's been a lot of fun. And I think it'll do much better in video form than it would in any stream thing. Because we can condense it all and really, ooh, apologies. Ooh, quality printer. Cranshin. I do like the quality Cranshin, it's quite good. I should get a water. I have a water. Wonderful. That was the last sip of water in that. That's funny. I'll refill that later. Turn the music down just a touch. I'm listening to absolute peak for today's stream. I just have the whole Blastorm project looping. Hopefully we get some quality items so we can get some decent value out of this. Cycler. I do like a Jellyfin, though. I was thinking that I should carry Jellyfins more often. Like, I think I had gotten into the habit of taking capacitors and DMLs and stuff for chef synergy. But I actually think that's probably worse. 1k on Doubter? Who could that possibly be? Oh, I didn't send out the notification, bro. I'm such a bad streamer. Oh, I've been also playing with the thing up. Oh, I'm such a terrible streamer, my god. I didn't get any items. Well, I'm setting it up now anyways, so this is fine. Streamer is a mess. Classic. What am I trying to? Tierlist, right? Oh, I don't have. I'm invisible on Discord. Who am I hiding from, bro? Okay. Typing. We're back though. Like we never left. I might have. Might be the one song I actually skip. It's a great song. It's just repetitive. Let me make this here, and then we do this. Okay, yeah, perfect. One of the PCs just randomly kicked into overdrive. 30 on Believer. Beautiful stuff. Okay. Hope you guys don't have to hear that. No, the fan isn't audible. Nice. It shouldn't be getting hot. It's the ambient temperature is quite low. Is there a fan? It might be kicking up something. Hold up. Oh yeah, there's a cable in the fan. Actually, it was warm. That is insane. How did you get warm? There's so many fans down there. I have the PC set up in a way so that obviously that their airflows aren't messing with each other. They're both out in the same direction, not blowing into each other. Just some quality Risk of Rain 2 runs tonight. And then after the first run, I'm gonna do I made a little tier list, and I'll explain more after. But it's a tier list that's trying to keep context in mind, so it's not really a tier list. It's not about which items are like better, but specifically items and how good they are, how much value they get during the Umbral Mithrix fight. To help with like stage 5 scrapping and stuff like that. Also just gives me the opportunity to talk about a bunch of the items and my thoughts on them and stuff. And I can then make it into a YouTube video. I'll leave that. That might be a better... Okay, it's finally chilled out. Sorry about that. Ooh, Ooh, that's also quite nice. I don't think there's a normal printer on this stage, so we should be good to pick those up. But make extra sure. I can't tell if this is like... Is the color, the skin tuner color I'm using more gold or more piss yellow? I know it's not like all the way yellow. We can open this quality chest, leave the other one for Sale Star. That rock looks so much like a chest, by the way. Okay, it super sounds like something hitting the fan. Give me 1 second. Alright, we're back. Should have fixed it, so it shouldn't be happening anymore. Check up top now. Doesn't really look like I'm gonna have an opportunity to use my Jade Elephant here, unfortunately. It's still doing it. It's gonna make me lose my mind. Do I have MSI Afterburner on this PC? Hold up. I do. Swag. Whatever. I hope there's not just like a low humming now. We're fine though. There's a... Oh, it might be the other PC that's doing that. Here's what we can do. How much longer do we have done prediction? We have 18 minutes? Okay, we're fine. It's actually getting warm down there, so I'm gonna open up Afterburner here and up that fan speed. Also should probably turn the voltage. There you go. Okay. There you go. That should be perfect. Now I can just set it and forget it, surely. Okay. Got a couple more chests to do. We have TP to do. I have not grabbed the blue portal. There's some white items strewn about as well. And then we have the quality chests and stuff. Let's open up the regular chests first. We'll leave one of the quality chests for Sale Star, obviously. Kind of disappointing amount of loot on the stage, especially since we didn't get Halcyon-ite, but I guess the quality chests are expensive credit-wise, maybe? Or maybe they are the same as normal chests. Wow, 2 boots. Wonderful. Very good on Captain and a very good item to stack, just generally. Make sure there's nothing hitting up here that I haven't seen. We won't take TP yet because we do have to grab the portal. Also no chance shrines. elephant there, forehead. Since we're heading over here for blue portal, we might as well use that as an opportunity to pop that chance try that quality chest. Leave the other one. We do have a lot of damage scaling for early game here. Which is nice, because we'll get the second boot as well. Oh. Look who I found. I'm gonna hold my beacon for... What's it called? Shooting? Speed shooting? Alright. We get scammed out of blue portal? I might have already checked this, to be honest. Hindsighting. Yep. Well. Did the journey across for no reason then. It's fine though. Let's see if this is going to be better than a quality cranshin. Level 3. Leave it on the ground and we'll decide. Because if the other one's worse, we'll just take the quality cranshin. Looks like I'm not going to be able to get blue portal, unfortunately, because it's either up there or up that. I don't think I can get that one. I do have the elephant, so I could try to Diablo myself. I also have an opal. How funny do I want to be? I do all of that just to go to one of the spots and it's not there, it's only on the other one. I don't know if blue portal's worth all of that. Especially since I don't have any items I want to put in. Like if I had a ton of green scrap, maybe. But I don't really care about... I mean, it's just the difference between going to a Felion and not, right? Most likely. Could also get guaranteed bans if we went to blue. But I'm not gonna. Decision made, unfortunately. I feel like I'm missing something. I mean, honestly, shooting it right now is probably unnecessary. Just good with ads while we wait for Diablo to kill it. As long as he doesn't wander. Gunner drone seems to be doing its job. 4 seconds. Sweets. We got a glue. Not sweets. And not NG, unfortunately. I guess we're doing some invis chest checking now. Seems like it's up to bat. Unfortunately, now we're gonna have to listen to that noise. Maybe that was a poor decision. I think we're clear. I think we just got drowned. Wisp City over here. Okay, we're fine. Oh, it also makes my beacons. I forgot about that. That's so cool. Nice touch. Oh, I need to be in the circle. Hold on. want to change the or fix the playlist while I'm checking ZP here. Multitasking. Alright. Quality chest. We decide which of these quality items we want to turn into a Cranshin. And then... we dip. That's simple. Quality AP round or a quality Clug. Clug is a higher rarity. Let's get the higher rarity Cranshin. We got the whole squad together for, well, I guess we're missing crit classes, but we got this whole squad together for damage scaling. Cranshin, AP round, watch, and boots, dude. A little bit of everything is the best part. AP round is the permanent scaling, isn't it? Or the stage scaling. The mini Desperado. This just makes Cranshin really, really good. We got 10 minutes on the prediction. I love walking, yet walking. The life of a captain. What does the best version of that do? Up to 60%. Oh, good God, the prediction just got a lot bigger. Alright. Deep State Mod will be ready to match. It's a pretty good run so far, so. Not a terrible one to gamble on. Put the chips in. Maybe another stack of quality Cranshin was the play. No. AP round's quite nice, actually. Just as an AP round. Separate from its Uki. The quality version. I do need speed, though. That is priority numero uno. Also, high roll on the stage. It was either this or Aqueducts that I wanted. The free band. Actually, free bands on Captain, because I don't have to worry about the bad pot rolling. Problem is, this stage is airing. Good lord. I knew he was hitting me. I'm also captain, so it doesn't matter. There's a gunner somewhere. Oh, he's right there. I found him. Report. Update. I'd love if it didn't just always pick the heaviest HP target. Feels like. I'm talking about my AP rounds, by the way. That red dot pops up every once in a while. If I kill them, I get increased damage for the stage, but... Oh, we got a scrapper, nice. It's inconsistent. We got 2 scrappers. Could be our Sailstar chest. We'll hold. Alright, this is where all the chests were. Let's open that utility chest first and foremost. Got a good pool of items. Okay, neither of those are good though. Update. Look at that, +1, baby. Been going up. Oh, 5 minutes left. Let's do the prediction. How much is on 11,000, so I just need 10,000. Perfect. Okay. Still looking for a card. Was that a chest that I saw? I don't remember. Also wouldn't mind some AoE, to be honest. The fact that we deal a billion damage is nice. But... do I have a red dot yet? No. I was paused. Of course that wouldn't progress the 20 seconds. Makes sense. Blue portal down there? Okay, nice. Where does this drop you? There. I thought it was an enemy with my drone peeking into my camera. And it went away the moment he turned the corner. Thank you, Apian. I was off by 78 points in the prediction. Good God, what am I doing? Shambles. What is that? Quality green. Ruckler. Well, quality Ruckler is kind of bad, but I do like Ruckler in general. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe there is something to it I'm missing with that whole running in a straight line thing. I don't think you're supposed to do that, though. It is like just an additional Ruckler, though, which is quite nice. Oh, that guy's too far away. Unlucky. This is scrapper, so I'll just start picking this stuff up. We just have the Chant Shrine as far as macro to do left. I guess that is better. Oh, there's the crit glasses. If we get our Recycler, this is really good. And we'll stay here and get a Churf. Well, ooh, maybe Shatter Spleen with the crit that we already have, and the fact we're on Captain. Make a very good use of Shatter Spleen on this right there. Oh, wait. Wait, why does he have so much HP? Did my drone kill him? You son of a bitch. Of course that also has the Saunders Whispers problem. Wonderful. Wow. Nice jump. Another chest I missed. Good eye. Blue portal's gonna be nice here because we'll have a decent amount of white scrap. Feel my headphone wire caught on something. Got it. What you got? Well, we have the hacking beacon for the chance shrine, so we can just buy this. Don't have to worry about our finances here. Which means we could do TP first. And there's no good bosses, so I guess that's probably the better option. Because we'll keep a gun if we see it. Okay. I don't like that thing. That's stressing me out, man. Okay. Hello. This is gonna give me damage, but I have no pull, so it's fine. Apparently not. It still did permadamage? Good lord. I wonder if, like, if there's nothing spawned, does it just not roll? The AP rounds. I mean, short, more damage. Yeah, I guess we do TP first. That's weird. Strange order of things, but it is the right one. Where does this send me? Nice. Good skip. W skip. Good lord. Thankfully, drones get microbots as well. It's basically guaranteed to not get hit there. And 2 item checks in the chant shrine. Right. Versus the... I'm sorry, that was such a non sequitur. Good lord. If I... With this, like, final macro here. The chance... the quality chest is not like the large chest. In the Sail Star chance stall macro thing. Because it doesn't have the smaller pool. It does have better chance stalls than Sail Stars, but they're less likely because it has white items as well. So I'm not sure if I do the shrine or the chest first. I guess if they're the same odds. Well, it's not the same odds, really. I don't know why I'm not just... Well, we can just do that to you. I guess I'll do the chance shrine first. 2 quality items sounds like a better deal than a chance at other stuff, right? And there's 2 hits on the chance shrine. Also, yay, more green scrap. We'll leave it on the ground in case there's a cycle area. Might turn down the in-game volume because we're gonna have the stun beacon up for a bit here. And it gets loud. Oh. You're gonna get... I've only been able to scale that twice, that's funny. Pretty brutal. We can do invis chest chat. Scouting as well, hold up. Alright, looks like we're good. I'll have to come back. That's kind of a pain. I might just grab this. Oh, yeah, that was good. Saw that one coming. That was good timing on the AP rounds on that guy. Holy shit, he's moving fast. Look at him go. We have to go the long way again. I love the lack of movement speed items so far. Dude, I just barely cleared that. That's funny. We're coming back for those anyways. Because that's where the scrapper is. There's another tri-shop on that path as well that we have to swing by, so might as well. Alright, Chance Shrine. What you got? Show me the goods. We want the key out of there. I mean, we do have plenty of damage scaling. White scrap. Cool. Alright, more treks, more walking. Hopefully this quality chest provides some swag. Not to say like we're directionless because we have so much damage, but I just need speed. I got nothing going here. I guess the war banners are my speed right now. Holy. Wow. We'll keep it. It's quite good actually. For a teddy bear, but end of the day it is still a teddy bear. I'll keep the I want to keep the stun nade. Nah. Part of me wants to keep the banners, to be honest, but if there's a speedpreneur, I would be very upset at myself for keeping the banners. Take another Cranshin? No, we'll take the backup mag. It's actually good. More stun gives me opportunities in case it's like Elder Lemurians and stuff, which are part of the reason I'm scared about the lack of speed. Because the stage 3 collection choices have some pretty rough enemy varieties for us. No green quality scrap, unfortunately. Alright. Still very slow. I would love a way to solve that situation. I mean, I take a Smurr at this point, right? Even though it's not what you really want on Captain. And I didn't miss anything. So I'm just too good. Just too powerful. Nope. And I'm not choosing to go there. Well, ow. Technically that, what's it called, is plus items, right? Because it's gonna be next stage, stage 4, stage 5, moon. That shipping across form. But I need white scrap for speed. Incoming goat hoof printer. Hands together in prayer for it. Because if not, this run is on a collision course with its own demise. Oh, good God, now it's... We've expedited that collision course? It's turned into a speeding bullet train directly to hell. This is already terrifying, and the lack of AoE is not going to make it any better. Damage scaling is not going to do much if I'm dead. We have to do a Halcyon-ite? Good lord, yeah. Funny. Honestly, the fact that Microbots eats the projectiles from these guys, or the slow area of effect attacks, is a lifesaver. Because these things will kill me with the slow. Can I one-shot you, Net? Okay. And that was with a crit too, rough. Maybe with more Cranston stacks. Where is it? I need to die immediately. Uh-oh. Well. That's why you get... I think my fall damage got reduced anyways. I didn't take any fall damage. I think it teleported directly under me as I... Oh, that's bad. That's why I like the backup mag, by the way. Part of me, and also why I wanted the stun aid. What's that quality speed printer? Oh, good god. I don't have any quality scrap though. Well, I mean, oh yeah, I do. Take the teddy bear. That sucks. That's the good one. We might indulge further, and there might be scrapper, so I might be punished for that. But I didn't want to die, and we needed any form of speed right now. Like just that was game changing. How much of this? 40%? Yeah, that's huge. Quality goat hoof printer, more specifically. I think, yeah, I just had to take that. Fuel cell printer, probably not. I just need the gasoline and we're good. Quality gas would be particularly appreciated. Double sail star chest. We do have a large chest on this stage. Let's go top. Try shop in there. Probably shouldn't let stuff spawn up, like build up in the director credits. Is this right? We don't want those hordes spawning. Just make sure we kill them when they pop up. They're basically the wisps of this stage on our priority list. Are the distributors? Alright, where is my lockbox? Die? Evil, oh, evil demon. I don't want to be in here, actually. I have a jellyfin, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Good lord. Like, how am I supposed to do a Halcyon-ite in these conditions? After TP, I guess? Quality item? Or quality speed? Could be. Looks like it to me. Well, that actually is good for microbots, though. I don't really care. I haven't seen a scrapper, so... And it's not that much better that we care all that much. Lockbox. Sure, I guess. Not great. Might make Halcyon-ite easier. I mean, Halcyon-ite we just have to use Stun Beacon and pray. Like, why does it choose that guy out of all of these guys to be my target? Oh, get owned. If I get 2 shots off quickly, I can kill it before it spawns anything, which is very... I just need gas, dude. Like, any AoE right now is a godsend. Maybe I shouldn't have taken that. We have, Diablo. Diablo does just kind of solve all problems for us here. Uh-oh. Well, I guess we're not checking up there yet. Not in the books, unfortunately. It shows the mending one again. Son of a bitch. Dude, this is where TP is? That's oh, this is gonna be a goated stun beacon, I guess. I think I booped him in there. Yeah, okay. Okay. Maybe a panic elephant, but I was worried. Okay. Don't like that. I'm so cooked. Please don't own me. We need to get them through the stun area. Oh, that didn't jump me high enough. Yep. There goes my watches. Yep. And I'm dead to fall damage. What a series of unfortunate events. Alright, let's do the tier list I was talking about. Let me set it up for us. Make sure the recording is on, not just the game. Do one of these. Alright. Zoom in here a little bit. Unfortunately, this big ass ads by Google thing on the bottom here. Very annoying. It's just what I ended up using. Is that annoying enough that I care? Kind of. Okay, this works just as well. Whatever. Okay. Here we go. Dude, it's so big. It's like a third of my screen down here. That's so annoying. You shall get your 20K back eventually. Oh, yeah. Let you, The doubters have won that prediction. Apologies. Believers, I did not have it out today. It's not my most locked in. Okay. So before we go over this, because a lot of you might be looking at this, if you play as Grid 2, and be like, this is ridiculous, what is he talking about? This is an actual tier list. These items are not always better than every other item here. It's about the value, and particularly the value against Mithrix. I should make that obvious, actually. Hold. I just had a really good idea. I can, hold up. should also change titles. Context-pilled is the important part of this. Because it is all about context. Games like these do not exist in a vacuum. Unfortunately. Or, unfortunately, it's funny because it's kind of the whole premise, right? Is that it's supposed to be your individual run, your individual context. Okay. And then I wanted to... I'm so sorry about your money. Your lunar stonks. I hope you find a way in your heart to forgive me, truly. Alright, I found a way to do it without having to deal with the... What's it called? Sweets. Okay, here we go. So, again, context pilled. So, we're talking about high value and how often that value is applicable to your run. And so I sort of just decided to have two versions where it's consistent or contextual. And obviously these aren't overwhelming, but I'm saying more often than not, are you going to get value from these items? And how much value are you getting from these items? And I'm saying specifically during the Umbral Mithrix fight, because Umbral is what I care about and what I play. So let's just go through the list. We'll start at the bottom with the bad stuff, because it's the easiest to talk about. The non-items, these don't do anything against Mithrix. I guess this War Banner could technically be inconsistent poor value, but that's not super important. These are items that just don't do anything. And in the consistent poor value, they technically could. Hi, Ignis. Good evening. I'm doing a Umbral tier list here. I should have, actually, you know what? So that I don't have to keep re-explaining myself. Let me do this. Just set up a little. It's a mod that makes Mithrix more difficult. It's like a boss fight overhaul mod. It's the reason Mithrix is purple whenever I fight him. Okay, here you go. Good stuff. So, these are the items that don't do anything. Stun Nade obviously does not affect Mithrix. He doesn't get stunned. And then the consistent poor value is items that technically do things. Max HP is something. The small amount of barrier you get from Eclipse Light, or the small amount of attack speed you get from Lantern. But overall, they never really impact the fight. This is where it gets interesting. The contextual mid value. There are times when stage 5, you have a shit ton of white scrap and there's a teddy printer, and you do go into it. The issue is, most of the time, if I'm willing to spend a bunch of white scrap into teddies, the run is already so powerful that it doesn't really matter. And the value you get from, 15 teddies or 20 teddies is so minimal because of the drop off in scaling that it's like not typically worth it. Crowbar is a similar situation. Crowbar, I find the only value, or opposite situation, where The only value of Crowbar is dealing with the orbs. That being said, on low damage runs, where I'm struggling to, have a bunch of the easy damage scaling options, a couple crowbars to deal with orbs, or honestly 1 or 2 crowbars, is very good and has value and is very important. Especially on like an accurate run, having a couple crowbars so that your M2, your spit, can one-shot the orb is kind of a lifesaver in stage 1 and 2. And then Repulsion Armor Plate is... It's unfortunate because all of Mithrix's attacks are so high damage that it doesn't super matter. The reason I have it here in contextual mid value is because it does work against the needles slightly, and I like bringing Repulsion Armor Plates into the moon because if I get greedy and let a gunner shoot at me, I don't take permanent damage. Also, it helps if you don't have pillars and you need to do blood shrines. So it has something, but obviously not valuable most of the time. The consistent mid value, these two, PSG and Echo, are what Rap wishes it was. As far as like mid-tier defensive items, this doesn't actually increase your defense, but more max HP does scale how good your defense is, as it's less. It lessens the impact of permanent damage, right? Cautious Slug is the only form of healing other than Weeping Fungus, which we'll talk about later, but it's consistently mid. It does something. The healing is enough. That's all the healing you really need. Healing is not really good in this game, obviously, especially against Umbral Mithrix, where most of the time you get you're either at 1 HP and about to die, or you're alive, or you're dead. There's the 3 states. So why do I care about a little bit of extra healing here? Watches do break with Transcendence, yes. Watches take the combined total of all of your HP. Actually, hold up. Don't go running around with that information. I might have lied to you. It's been so long since I used Transcendence. I think I'm right, but I'm actually not sure now. Hold up. I'm gonna derail the tier list for a second. Check this. Yeah, okay. I was right. It does use your combined max HP. It's the same as the fuel array that you get from your landing pod. Okay, sorry. Back to the tier list. We were talking about the bad items. Or we're here, right. Healing's useless. And especially any amount of healing that isn't just like passive regen or something that's guaranteed to constantly happen, like Weeping Fungus. Now do we get to the interesting ones? These are the actual conversation pieces. Contextual high value. So in certain spots, and what spots are there? These are some of the best things. Backup mag is super contextual because it's really just loader, where it is uber high value. The reason it's up here though is because not only is it uber high value on loader, it's the best white item on her. Like it's all of your speed, it's all of your mobility, and increase your damage because being able to build up more momentum with loader, with chaining, grapple hooks, with your punch is going to increase your damage. And it leads to less land loadering, which is less dangerous. So it's just phenomenal. And then it's also valuable in short spurts on other characters. It can be valuable to air stall with certain characters' abilities like Bandit's M2 or Huntress's Glaive. Obviously, there's characters like Engineer where it's not super valuable, but again, context matters. Backup mag is one of your favorite items. I think it's a very simple item that works very well when you want it. It does its job extremely well. I appreciate that. Let's talk about the attack speed items now. You just like it? Just like having a mag. That's fine. I just like Pocket SCBM. Yeah, as long as you have favorites. The attack speed items are interesting here as well. Specifically, the super high value context for these items is on multi, where they're essentially movement speed with double nail gun and not retool, it's the other one, power mode. Because the faster that you shoot, the quicker you can move by nail boosting, and the more mobility you have, and better traversals throughout the Umbral Mithrix fight, which particularly in the Umbral Mithrix fight, having that extra mobility to get to a better position to dot pizza in stage 2 and 3, and positioning yourself better in stage 1, being able to stay in power mode for longer because of the extra attack speed, because you can move better. It's a sort of a compounding effect. And then it also can help Railgunner skip pillars, increase your damage with bleed builds, and just increases damage in general. And then also Mocha obviously has the innate movement speed. And then these damage items all sort of fall into the same category of they're almost as good as the top tier damage items, but you do need to fall under certain parameters for them to work. Focus Crystal, you really need to be in melee range, which against Umbral Mithrix is like Loader and Eviscerate Merc sometimes. There are sometimes where you can get greedy with the Crystal in between phase transitions when he's in the middle. But most of the time, you just being that close to Mithrix is stupid, and it's a bad idea because it means you're not up in the air. Because again, it's a circle around you, not like a cylinder, so you can't just be above him. Also, being directly above him is kind of scary because he will track you as he chases you. Anyways, the crit is contextual and below the boots, very funny because they're comparable items, because the boots is just better in most scenarios, and there's only really one scenario where the boot isn't better, and it's with turrets on Engie, but that's only for the turrets, not for the engineer itself. It's still better for the engineer itself. Yeah, they're just taped for the backup mag. The crit also has the problem of not helping Bandit or Railgunner in the way that it does that the boots do. The crit glasses don't give you crit damage, which means for a character that has guaranteed crits, they're essentially useless. I know that technically the crit damage is converted for Railgunner, the crit chance is converted for Railgunner into crit damage, but it's just a pitiful amount, especially when considering you're getting like a quarter of the damage that you would if you were a character that could crit. And in a similar situation, boots aren't amazing for Railgunner, but they do a decent amount more because they give you both the crit chance and damage, which means they scale considerably faster for Railgunner than the crit glasses. So there's just more scenarios in which the crit glasses aren't perfect and aren't really what you want, and the boots are just better statistically in the situations where the glasses are going to be good anyways. Sticky bombs are the poor man's damage scaling, except in the small scenario and cases of times when you have a lot of proc, specifically high damage proc options, a lot of ATGs, a lot of a runic lens, maybe churfs, maybe murphs. Then it will scale exponentially with those other damage items. If you can proc an ATG off a churf into a sticky bomb, then the damage is going to get really absurd. Also, just works better on higher damage burst characters in general when it's one big instance of damage. Think Desperado Bandit, think Railgunner, think Loader, Artificer. Has its value, but isn't quite consistent enough because there's definitely instances where, like, on multi early, what do I care about a sticky bomb when my hits are doing such a small amount of damage and I'm just dealing a bunch of them. It does something, but it's nowhere near as good as a watch would be, or even a crit glass. Bleed, obviously, the king of context. Characters it's good on, it's amazing. It's the best damage option for Commando most of the game, most of the run. Against Umbral, it is a little harder to use because obviously he dashes, and it will cleanse his debuffs when he dashes in the air, and it's hard to keep it stacked on him because he's so mobile and so quick. But when you can stack bleed with stuff like Polylutes and Shatter Spleen and being Commando or multi, it's very, very powerful. That being said, I don't care about it if I'm on half of the cast, and so obviously it can't be consistently high value, which these all are. You'll see a trend with this being simple, solid damage, and movement speed. That's what all of these are in the consistent high value. Did I miss any of the... Oh, yeah, the antlers. Okay. Explanation for antlers here, because you might say they're like, the movement speed item. Against Umbral, especially on low stacks, and especially if it's one of your only speed items, antlers are a nightmare. It is so difficult to keep them up while dodging pizza in stage 2 and 3. It's actually such a headache. And dropping antlers is a death sentence, right? And so it's just, contextually, it's not always what you would prefer to have over some of these items. But obviously, it gets value in a way that none of the items under it have, in the form of movement speed, which is your number one key to surviving. Up here, movement speed, movement speed. I mean, if this were ordered in like how much value, it would be goat have first. It's the goat. Always movement speed. It also scales just as good as the sprint speed, and it improves your sprint speed in the same way that, basically the same amount that an energy drink does, so it's just an upgrade. Watches and AP rounds are your bread and butter. They're essentially the same against Umbral because he is a boss. And having 5 or 6 of these, each of these is just going to help churn through Mithrix's HP bar on top of your proc scaling or band scaling or whatever else you're using. And then Opal is your go-to defense item. Because it's a white item, it's so common, you can get multiple stacks of it. Really recommend you do, because you might think that that 80% damage reduction or the 85% damage reduction you have is enough. It isn't. Umbral Mithrix does a shit ton of damage, like just an obscene amount, especially pizza. And getting 10 to 15 stacks of Opal isn't the craziest thing ever, considering just how much he can do in one instance. I mean, if you hit eat a pizza slice in stage 3, you're going to feel it no matter how many Opals you have. Yeah, and then obviously I discussed the boots with the crit glasses. And now we get to the final one, the bottom tier, context-pilled. And these are items that can get value, but only in hyper specific situations, like one specific build. Each of the tier lists will have this tier. And it's just an opportunity for me to explain cool Umbral Mithrix builds that I think should be easier to get. And I think Chef is an easy way to have that happen. And I think that the fact that we're not using that opportunity is annoying, but I'll get to that when we get to the equipments. Because part of this tier list is also just an excuse for me to go on a rant about why FMP builds should be easier to get. Anyways, context build, this is an FMP build is what I'm describing here. Cranshin and Gas are both very valuable if you are in the situation where you have an FMP with a Soulbound Catalyst and one fuel cell, or multiple Soulbound Catalysts, where you can permanently upkeep the Forgive Me Please. Obviously with the Cranshin, Cranshins essentially become better watches or better AP rounds because they scale at 15, 150%, or no, whatever. It's better scaling. Higher number. And with an FMP build, you can upkeep this infinitely and always keep them active because you can keep multiple dolls active. And then the same with the gasoline, it becomes a phenomenal damage tool. Probably in the area of, the strength of like bleed for a Mando, if you have that build set up. And then the brooch is a really good defense item, if you have those. Now, you do need 3 brooches to really, I think, for permanent. Yeah, you need 3 brooches for constant barrier. But, I mean, compare the amount of barrier you build with brooches FMP to, like, Eclipse. Obviously, it's a whole synergy in a build versus one item, but it does have very high value in that situation. And then Fireworks, obviously, another micro build, niche build, that being the Fireworks caffeinator build. I got there. Caffeinator, remote caffeinator build. So Fireworks obviously very powerful in that one instance with stuff like Pocket ICBM, Plasma Shrimp, all that kind of stuff. Multiplying the number of missiles going off at any one time. Very powerful. Alright, let's go to the other one now. I also should get myself water. I'll be right back. And we'll start the next. All right. All right. Back to the tier list. Back to actual content being made. Full screen this thing. Okay. I can put the text back up as well. No, that's the wrong text, lol. Alright. Same situation. 9 items. These just don't impact Umbral Mithrix. The invisibility matters a very small amount, and when this is going to go off, like when you're going to get hit and drop to low HP, it especially doesn't matter, because 90% of the time this is going to happen, you're going to get hit by pizza. And so when you're invisible, the piece is going to go off no matter what, and it still tracks and acts the exact same whether or not you're invisible. So this is essentially useless. And it's also so inconsistent as to be useless. Same with the rest of these items. I would have, in another world, put Squid Polyp in contextpilled if the Squid Polyp remote caffeinator build actually did anything. Unfortunately, it doesn't, because Squid Polyp sucks, and they hate this item. Rest in peace, Squid Polyp. Anyways, obviously there are good items in the non-item tier here, like Sail Star and Chance Stall. These are incredibly valuable throughout the run. Obviously, they don't do anything against Umbral Mythics. The consistent poor value items, the worst item against Umbral Mythics in the entire game by a wide margin. It's the only item I don't want to have in my inventory, is a Wax Quail. It's just bad. The turn speed is worse because you are in the air for longer. Well, your momentum is pushing you in one direction, which means you can't turn as quickly. It puts you in bad positions for pizza. It's annoying to manage and to keep hold of. Sometimes you need it if you have a headset, but it also lowers your jump height, which is one of the worst things, making it even harder if you do not have a feather to jump over the head of Mithrix, which is a super important thing that you have to try and do during the Mithrix fight, especially in phases 2 and 3. And this just makes it more difficult. One of the worst items to have. None of these other items are like detrimental. They just don't do anything. The attack speed is meaningless. Like, these two are mostly just for 5% crit, which is like a bad crit class for a green item. So most of the time I prefer it to be scrap. The box of dynamite is useless, doesn't do anything, and the leeching seed is also actually technically do something. This gives you another drone, which takes aggro, 5% crit, and this heals you, but essentially useless. Contextually mid-value. The fire of the Warhorn here is a crazy placement on my behalf. I think here's my excuse for it. Probably shouldn't be here, but it's the same excuse for the attack speed argument for the white items, but even worse in this instance because you have to have even more context go your way in the fact that you have an equipment with fuel cells or a way to reset the equipment's cooldown, or just be a short cooldown equipment in the first place, and then be on a character that wants to use that attack speed and have the opportunity to use that attack speed often. So it's not likely that that's valuable. That's why it's in the contextual mid value. You get me. Ukulele here. Unfortunately, Uke is not a single target damage item. That being said, it does have its use, and that particular use is basically the same for Crowbar, which is orbs. If I have nothing else to deal with orbs, Ukulele will work. You just need something that's going to chain damage to the clone and then eventually to the orb so that you don't have to deal with it as much. Transmitter is kind of unfortunate. It used to be obscene, but the now version of Transmitter is just okay. The value it brings in protecting your watches is decent. The value it brings in protecting your life is not really there. Especially against Umbral, a lot of the times it will go off because your one-shot protection went off, but the one-shot protection would have saved you anyways, and it has, zero impact on the second slice of pizza hitting and killing you. It's still going to get you anyways. And the teleporting is a little annoying actually, because it's super inconsistent and it'll position in really weird ways. And if you get very low and he's like mid pizza and you have to run close to him because it's like phase 3, and then he teleports away, it's a really annoying situation. So this is a very strange item for Umbral specifically. And then obviously Fuel Cell is super dependent on the equipment that you have, but because equipment are valuable in, there are several equipment that are super valuable in Umbral, I actually do find myself liking Fuel Cell more often than I don't. Obviously Deus Ex Machina, then all the damage equipments, and Jade Elephant, which is also super useful. And then the goat of this being Blast Shower. Fuel Cells and Blast Shower with a safer spaces can single-handedly carry a run that, you know, might be lacking in speed or might not have a feather yet, simply because you could just tank so many hits of damage with that Blower spaces combo. Consistent mid value. These are stuff that I just like to have. Infusion is the best source of max HP in the game, and taking 2 or 3, getting them full stacked, is actually quite valuable in Umbral, because it increases the likelihood that you don't get fucking owned after you lose your one-shot protection, right? So every bit of HP matters after that first one-shot protection barrier is broken. It helps out all of your other defense items, like Ruckler and Connect Dampener, which we'll get to later. But it's a good synergy item. It's an item that scales really well. Infusion tech is great. I would, you know, and then obviously has the best possible use case being with False Sun, where it's just the best item in the game, or one of the best items in the game. 100 max HP for one item is obscene for False Sun and how his growth scales. So yeah, and then Red Whip is in this tier, even though you don't really get to use it for most of the Mithrix fight. But when it does come into value, it is really, really valuable. Maybe it should be contextually high value, actually. Shit. Anyways, during pizza, it is a form of speed guaranteed that you don't, you know, if you're on a run with no other speed, Red Whip might just be your answer to pizza, because it's the only thing you have. It's one of those items that I will want to keep 1 or 2 in my pocket, just in case I don't get the speed I need to dodge pizza, or I don't get an extra jump, or I don't get that spaces, so that I can have that extra mobility to not get fucking owned during pizza. Because one of the biggest things with pizza in phase 2 and 3 is making sure that you make your distance from Mithrix, and that you position yourself in a way that you can kite your corners in case it's, you know, needles, depending on the phase, or orbs, or whatever you need to avoid, or another Mithrix clone. You position yourself in a way that you can do that, and you can't do that without apt speed, and Red Whip will provide that because you're not shooting at him anyways, right? Breaching Fin, I've actually grown on this item so much against Umbral, particularly in phase 1. It doesn't really do a whole lot in the other phases, but in phase 1, it gives you these perfect opportunities to get big burst damage, and it's just a wonderful item to have. It also helps proc Deathmark, as it is a debuff, and it is good damage in general. I don't really want too many of them. It does feel like a waste of green scrap, but 1 or 2 going into Umbral is very valuable. The stun is nice, and then obviously the juggling aspect in phase 1 of being able to just hold him in air and deal 1 bajillion damage to him before he can really even do anything to you. Take another sip of water. Alright, excuse me. Alright, the contextual high value items. Noxious Thorn. Noxious Thorn is very high value. In these two are actually next to each other for the exact same reason. Thorn is probably supposed to be better. Which is, they essentially work perfectly together as well, which is getting the Deathmark proc on Umbral and against Mithrix is one of the things that you should sort of just have in the back of your head at all times, because that 50% damage is multiplicative scaling with everything else, because it's a debuff applied to Mithrix, which means it's applied after all of your other damage scaling sources are applied, multiplying off of that. So it really skyrockets your damage, especially late game when you already have all of these other sources of damage. And Noxious Thorn is the best, you know, one of the best things to get Deathmark online. And that extra bleed and AoE is really nice. This shouldn't be up here. Obviously, it doesn't get a ton of value during Umbral specifically. I think the whip was supposed to be in its spot, but I can change that in post-production, surely. Next up, the other conditional speed item, because whip and compulsion basically serve similar purposes, right? The other speed item, compulsion, is essentially antlers, but better in every way. And they also help antlers be a more consistent form of speed. They provide stats based on pickups, and antlers are the most consistent form of pickup during the Umbral fight. If antlers didn't exist, this item would actually be pretty bad, because its other form of consistent procs are like junk drones and monster tooth, which are less consistent during the Mithrix fight. Obviously, you need like FMP for monster tooth to do anything. But because of antlers, it's very valuable. Very common to get that synergy. If you have a compulsion, you're very likely to have an antlers because it's a common item, and to get that value from it. It's movement speed, it's max HP, it's damage, high value. If you have the build for it. Then we have these two, which are the defense items, Ruckler and Kinetic Dampener. These both give exactly 30 strength per stack, just in different contexts. One gives you 30% damage, or 30 armor, not 30% damage. The math doesn't work like that. Gives you 30 armor for your shield HP, and this gives you 30 armor while you're sprinting. They're both very good, both very valuable. I prefer Ruckler just because you're not guaranteed to get shield. You can always hit the sprint button. Obviously, Ruckler is more valuable on characters that are constantly sprinting. Huntress, Merc, right? The Kinetic Dampener also synergizes really well with just stacking a bunch of PSGs, because as you're getting more max HP, your defense is getting better as you're actually increasing the defense with the extra armor. And so it does multiplicatively scale with the extra max HP that you're adding with the PSGs. So it has a higher ceiling than the Ruckler, but the Ruckler is just more consistent. Both very, very good items. Both items that I'm going out of my way to get in runs for Umbral Mithrix specifically, because typically you don't need the damage reduction of anything past an Opal until Mithrix comes into the picture. Shurikens, your best friend if you need to deal with orbs and you don't have a melee attack. Like if I'm using Eviscerate, Merc, or if I'm on Loader and I don't want to waste a punch to deal with the orb or whatever, Shurikens are your best friend. Shurikens are also just nice to proc bands if your character doesn't have that. Do a bunch of things. They're also really, really nice if you don't have good range to try to break the crystals in phase 2 and 3. That being said, the bloom, the natural sway of the shurikens, makes them very frustrating when you're trying to use them to break crystals, because the crystals are so far away from you that they'll just miss quite wide, let's just say. And so you have to throw multiple shurikens and like return to try to get that break. That's less often a problem than it is not, so I'll give them a break for that. In a similar vein to the just sort of base good damage, Lumi, very valuable, is a little bit more character specific, because there's some characters that don't really use their M1 for damage. Think Loader, right? Think Acrid. You're really not going to be using your M1 on Umbral Mithrix very often, so you're not really going to get value out of the Lumi. That being said, there are characters that get a lot of value out of it. Railgunner gets, or not Railgunner, False Sun gets a ton of value out of it. And it's also just good DPS and fits well within the rhythm of the fights, so it's just damage generally. And in the right situation can be stacked to gain a lot of damage. Difficult to do so, obviously. That's why it's contextual. And then the burning, the ignition tank, could be argued for context filled, but obviously there are characters now, Chef and Artificer, that the ignition tank is just a good period dot item on. It's just damage. If you're using the burning abilities for those two characters, obviously. Which, you know, have varying levels of power, flamethrower included. But most of the time on those characters, it's going to be very valuable. And then in other instances, it can have its moments. And then the consistent high value, the coat, the king, the feather, and then the best damage item in the game. Obviously, a feather, extra jump, it's your best mobility option in the game. Being able to jump over Umbral Mithrix is super important. Being able to jump multiple times, period dot, is super important. It helps with dodging shockwaves. It helps with dodging orbs. It helps with dodging needles. It helps with dodging slashes. It's just, it is the the key piece. It helps you position yourself to get away from the clone in phases 2 and 3. It helps, I can go on and on. Anyways, the bans here, I say, are the best damage item in the game. And I say that because they're the most consistent damage item in the game. ATGs can just miss. Bans will be there every 10 seconds. You will have that choice of damage scaling. You can get guaranteed bans if you go to Abandoned Aqueduct, but that's beside the point. Ice Band in particular is guaranteed to do all of its damage to Mithrix every time you use it. Fire Band is a little more inconsistent, but there are plenty of moments where Umbral Mithrix stands still long enough, especially in phases 2 and 3, where you can get away with getting a Fire Band and get all of its damage. ATGs are just way less consistent. Luckily, ATGs don't have the missile issues they used to have, where they would just shoot at the drone, or shoot at the clone, or not hit him at all, or miss. Those have been cleaned up a little bit. Obviously, ATGs still just miss on occasion. It just happens. But it is still the upper echelon of damage items, and it is still super consistent. It's just not quite bans, in my opinion. And then the newest addition to this category, the Spur. Now, some of you may argue that the Spur is not consistently high value. Oh, I just slammed the desk. Consistently high value, because there are some runs where you have plenty of speed and you don't care about having a Spur or not. That being said, it's too powerful of a speed item and too game-changing when it is picked up to not be, like... And also, most of the time that I get a Spur, I need a little bit extra speed. Even if it is just to be a buffer during pizza. I mean, it's the turbocharged Red Whip, right? Obviously, the downside of not jumping is rough, and it's anti-synergy with the wonderful Hopu Feather over there. But it's a life changer, it's a life saver, and a run saver specifically. Learn how to use the Spur. Specifically learn how to use the momentum that you get from Spur to gain vertical height, because all the little lips in the Mithrix arena on the ground, in Umbral Mithrix, well, in normal Mithrix as well, all those little lips, if you run across them and then turn your momentum away, you can jump, essentially, without using up your Spur, and still get the vertical height you need to get over the head of Mithrix, because you have so much movement speed. It almost makes up for the lack of being able to jump. I wouldn't recommend doing this always, but in Phase 1, it is a very essential strat to be able to do that. Alright, is that everything? Oh wait, context-pilled. Will-O-Wisp is the exact same situation as the gasoline from last one. FMP build, hyper-specific. Prayer beads is a very specific situation that I actually kind of enjoy. I like the thing here. Whereas if you keep the prayer beads until Umbral Mithrix, the final boss of the game, final stage, end of it all, and you have plenty of stacks in it, in Phase 4, when he steals your items, you do get the max HP and levels from it. Which means in Phase 4, you're a little bit more tanky, and you're a little bit less likely to get completely owned and die. And so it does have value in that situation. Hyper-specific, niche, and unimportant, to be honest, but I did like... I wanted to point it out. Anything else here I think might be controversial. I mean, obviously the Red Whip being in the wrong spot, the Noxious Thorn being a spot too high. It'd probably be contextual mid-value, but anyways. Okay. Next one. I have to take a screenshot every time, because I don't want to... I just made them in Tier Maker, but the website has ads, and I don't like the ads. So I'm being petty and taking a screenshot of it instead. I will not have my stream infested with your ads. Stand strong against the forces of evil. Alright. As you can see down here, there's the context-pilled FMP build once again. I won't go back and explain this one. This is pretty obvious. These three all only work on kill. Specifically, Soulbind Catalyst is the catalyst to the FMP build working. And these two are very, very strong if you have the FMP build. If not, they're very weak. Or they essentially are not items. In the non-item category, we have obviously the goats of non-items, Aegis, Nuka Honda's Opinion, and Wake of Vultures. Then we have Frost Relic, which again, on kill effect, Rejuvenac is healing and is useless. None of these seem controversial to me. Sonar Sisters is a phenomenal item. Doesn't do anything against Mithrix. Technically, during Umbral, you do get an item at the very end, but who cares? Then, in consistent poor value, we have Satan himself, the Bottled Chaos, and War Bonds. War Bonds is just like a bit of damage. Maybe it's higher, because it is at least damage, but it's such a small, pitiful amount that I don't particularly care. It does get scaled by Pocket ICBM, if that's something. And then Bottled Chaos will get you killed more often than it will help you. Because, for some reason, in the Bottled Chaos pool, Egg exists. Which means sometimes when you're using your Deus Ex Machina, let's say, or your Jade Elephant to dodge incoming damage, you will transform yourself into a fucking egg and nosedive directly into the pizza slice that you were trying to avoid. It completely changes your movement, it completely fucks with your rhythm, and it's awful, and I hate it. Take Egg out of the Beos pool immediately. There's my small matter about Egg in the Beos pool. Other than that, Beos just typically isn't all that valuable. There's just not a whole lot going for it. There's not a lot of equipments that are that good to just randomly get. I mean, it's cool to get a capacitor shot or a Praeon shot or a DML proc every once in a while, but I don't super care. It's just not really an impactful item. Next, we have Sentient Meat Hook, which is essentially just a better Uke. And is in the exact same spot as Uke because of it. 20% more damage on a ukulele with the exact same proc chance. Sweet. Cool. It helps with orbs a little better than a Uke does. It does the same thing. We'll take that and enter into the other, but the best orb cleanser, which is Unstable Tesla Coil, not Unstable Transmitter, Unstable Tesla Coil, which not only helps with orbs, but also provides a decent amount of damage to Mithrix himself, and in particular helps churn through the HP of the clone in phase 1 and 2. So it's useful for that. And because it's on a timer, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to change how you're moving or interacting to get the value. Growth Nectar is essentially the giga-charged version of all the stat increasing items. A bunch of speed, max HP movement, damage, all good stuff. That being said, it does interact interestingly with the acceleration, or maybe they changed that. Maybe they fixed that. But it can make you too fast at times. So that's the one drawback, I guess. Unfortunate to see that Drone Man is here. This is the highest that I could put Drone Man. I already argued that maybe he's in contextual mid value because he's not that good against Umbral. But because he is essentially the same as a Tesla Coil here, which is a bunch of extra damage if you have the right build for him. And at the very, very bare minimum, it is orb killing and orb protection. So that's good, because the drones are very good at killing the orbs because they have the built-in chain. They're valuable for that, and that's sort of their floor. And at their value ceiling, they do actually do a pretty solid amount of damage. On the other side, we have Alien Head, which is a little contextual, but I put it in the consistent mid-value tier because as an aggregate and as a whole, it is just sort of an okay red into Umbral most of the time. The biggest value it has in most scenarios is reducing the cooldown of your movement skill. Think Slide on Mando, Triple Blink on Huntress, Punch on Loader. Typically that is very valuable in Umbral because being able to move faster and use that ability more often is obscene, or is very necessary to get away from him in position and all that kind of stuff. I like Alien Head against Umbral. It's just, it doesn't sway or change the fight in a way that is as impactful as any of the other reds that we'll talk about. So it lands right here. Next, Shattering Justice. This is the lowest I put it because I had a lot of thoughts about Shattering Justice because its brother, Symbiotic Scorpion, is right there. And there are moments when I'd actually prefer to have the Shattering Justice. That being said, it doesn't have a contextual high side. Shattering Justice can't get better than Shattering Justice build. 60 armor reduction, which is a damage increase for you through a debuff. It also procs Deathmark. It's valuable. You can proc it pretty consistently on almost all characters. Insert wiki loader Shattering Justice meme here. It's a good item. It's just sort of meh. It's whatever. It brings damage, which is nice. Doesn't really do that much damage, and doesn't have a high side that synergizes with other damage builds to convince me that it deserves a higher tier. It's consistently mid. It works. Now the fun items. And I had a lot of debates about Dios, so we'll talk about that first. Because I was thinking that I don't know how valuable an extra life really is. But when we're talking about Mithrix, and specifically Umbral Mithrix, also I forgot to pop the text back on the screen. When we're talking about specifically Umbral Mithrix, you are just more likely to die than against any other thing in the game, right? He's, and so having a Dios is super valuable. That being said, it's not guaranteed. You don't get it for the full fight. Obviously, phase 4, you don't get your Dios, and I'd much rather have a red that gives me that increases my likelihood of not dying in the first place, right? It is the worst of these high value contextually high value reds, in my opinion. But the matter of fact is, sometimes you're going to get owned by Umbral Mithrix, and having a life is the only course of action to deter that, or just have better items. But the life sort of acts like a buffer, right? Contextually high value enough. Saving run is pretty high value. You can't argue with that. I don't think that seems pretty one-to-one. Clover is not in S tier for the first time ever, because it's not a tier list, really. Barely a tier list. I mean, it's pretty obvious what the Achilles heel of Clover is. It's the best damage item in the game if you have the damage items to combo it. If you have the runic lenses, the ATGs, the polylutes, churf smurfs, the on-hit effects that make the Clover so powerful, then yeah, it's obscene. It's ridiculous. It breaks the game. It makes it lag. All that kind of stuff. That being said, you could have none of that. You're like on a bandit run, and all of your damage is coming from bans anyways, and it's not even increasing your crit chance because you're a bandit. So what? It makes my Gome a little more effective in Umbral Mythics. I don't really care. There are just instances where the Clover doesn't do anything, although they're so rare that it doesn't super matter. Now we have what Alien Head wishes it was, the Hard Light Afterburner. Remember how I said the best thing about Alien Head is that it reduces your shift cooldown? Well, this just gives you 2 more shifts. So every instance where Alien Head is very valuable, this is way more valuable. On Artificer, it basically just makes the fight free because you can permanently freeze Umbral Mithrix, and it is the easiest Umbral fight in the game. That being said, there are obviously instances where it is less valuable than others. On NG, it's like, whatever. It's 3 more harpoons. It's nice. It's a damage buff. But it's not perma-freeze Mithrix and win. It's not 5 blinks, right? 3 Merc dashes, 3 loader punches. The value of Hard Light is very obvious, but there's just times when it doesn't hit quite the same. Pocket SBM, similar situation to Clover. It's a synergy item. If you have the synergistic damage items for it, it's good. If you don't, it's not. Laser Scope as well. Laser Scope has grown on me significantly, and I've actually realized that I was underappreciating how much damage Laser Scope really does. Because obviously it's another source of multiplicative damage. It obviously has the crit damage tax applied onto it, but it is still an obscene amount of damage. And getting one of these on a railgun run or on a run where you already have a ton of bleed really skyrockets the damage. Essentially in the same way that a Scorpion makes the damage incredibly high. The Scorpion also has the high side of just infinitely stacking, and so you can get as many stacks of armor reduction as you possibly could want on characters like Multi and Commando. With stuff like Polylute and Plasma Shrimp, this can scale obscenely high very, very quickly and give you a ton of damage. And then Boomerang works essentially the same as like Clover in Identity, which is It's a really good proc item, especially on characters who hit frequently. It's a little finicky to use because you do have to be aiming, and it is not infinite range like a lot of the other proc items. That being said, when it's good on, again, multi-commando, it's really, really good. It just isn't always a great option to have. And that's where these 3 damage items in the high value, consistent high value tier stand apart. All 3 of these on every character are good. Nuffering, even on accurate, is obscenely strong. Nuffering is the best damage item in the game by a wide margin. If, bands are the best green damage items, Nuffering is the best, period, dot. It's so fucking good, and probably needs another tuning. Like, 45 might be too high still. Behemoth is also really good, especially at dealing with the clone. It's also just 60% damage. Thumbs up. It's good damage scaling, period, dot. Also scales really well with certain characters, like Bandit uses Behemoth really well. Anyways, Runic Lens is the best proc, singular proc item in the game. It's essentially the uber-charged ATG, but in an even more powerful sense, it scales better on the characters where getting those ATG procs is more difficult. Because you're not hitting very often with Loader, ATGs are not going to be as valuable, except a Runic Lens completely breaks that system because the more damage you deal, the more likely you are to proc that Runic Lens, which means on Railgunner, Bandit, Loader, it becomes not only an ATG, but a gigacharged, super overcharged proc damage item that scales obscenely well and does 1 bajillion damage. It doesn't break the game in quite the same way that like Clover ATGs do, because only one of them could exist at any one time. But I think that's probably better. And then obviously we have Headset. It's Feather's, older grandpa. It's the father figure to Feather. It does what Feather does better. Also gives you a guaranteed damage option in phase 1. I do not recommend using Headset in phase 2 or 3. It's a suicide mission. But it is very valuable in phase 1 as a damage tool. Band procer. It's also just a great escape tool. He can't hit you if you're all the way up there, right? That being said, it can be dangerous sometimes in Pizza. Just don't jump. It's Headset. What are we kidding here? Who are we kidding? And then I already talked about the FMP items down here. In length. Is that it, or did I have another one? Oh, I did have another one. For the equipment. All right, we'll do one more. Okay. More yapping. The yapping continues. All right. So here are the context-pilled equipment I were talking about. And let's start with let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do the FMP rant. Essentially, the key items and key pieces required to get an FMP build online, which is an entire section specifically to fight Mithrix, which is an entire portion of the item pool. The required steps and items to get it are too rare. Now, I understand that Soulbound needs to stay a red. It's a red item. It has a very powerful effect, especially if you're looping and not just going to Mithrix. I understand that. Outside of the context of this situation, obviously I understand. But there should be a way to craft one of the 3 key ingredients to an FMP build, so that you're not always held to this nightmare of, I'm going to get 2 out of the 3 pieces for the FMP, and I'm never going to be able to finish the build. It's a fun build. It's one of the more interesting builds in this game that isn't just your standard 5 watches, 5 AP rounds, enough speed, enough enough defense, maybe a bleed build, right? Or maybe I have like 2 ATGs in a band, right? Like there is a very interesting build that you don't typically get to see, but it's so difficult to see that it's almost like a white horse. It's like, it's almost a, what's the word that I'm looking for? A gold goose, maybe, is what I'm trying to say. It's never gonna happen, right? Or it will happen, but it's so rare that it's not worth really gunning for, which is lame because I want to gun for it. I want to try to build this run. So I think, in my opinion, it probably should be fuel cell because fuel cell is just a good item in general, and being able to craft fuel cells would be super nice because there are some runs where I just really want a fuel cell, even if I'm not going specifically for that. For Black Shower runs or Deus Ex Machina runs or whatever it may be. But these are the 2 context-pilled equipments. Enough of the ranting about FNP build. These 2 are good if you have the build for them. Shit ton of Fireworks Net, Pocket ICBM, or Fuel Cell, and a Soulbound Catalyst. Not items, these just don't do anything. Unfortunately, the cube does not affect Mithrix. Prana Accumulator would be nice. Way too long of a cooldown. 180 seconds just is unbelievable. It's so long that it's just useless. You have the healing relics here, healing equipments here as well. It's just, again, what is the point of all of this? Healing if most of the time I'm just going to be at max HP or dead anyways. I would rather equipment that does something. Obviously, sometimes you're going to be bringing a vase to Mithrix. It's not a really good evasion option unless you're really dire on speed, and if you're that dire in Umbral Mythics, you're just dead anyways. Maybe consistent poor value is not giving it quite the slack that it deserves, but it really doesn't do a whole lot. And same with the Molotov, which is here not just because it does like poor damage, really bad damage, but it also is incredibly difficult to use and essentially like never an impact during the Umbral Mythics fight. He's never standing still long enough to get the full burn damage. It takes too long. Like, it's such an obscenely bad equipment. I don't want to get upset thinking about it right now, so we'll move on to the contextual mid value, which is wings are good at getting you away from Mithrix. That being said, in phases 2 and 3, it's a death sentence to use wings because it restricts your jump while they're active. And if they deactivate mid-air, they put you in this hellish nightmare prison where you're slowly floating to the ground and you can't turn very quickly. And Mithrix is just running at you full speed and you're cooked, right? It's really bad to be caught in mid-air with the wings, especially against Umbral. And so more often than not, I'm just trying to avoid dealing with the wings in the first place. Ocular HUD is fine. It's crit, 100% crit chance. Whatever. It's damage. I have the same feeling with Backup Mag and Gubo. Gubo at least has some contextually higher value with some interesting synergy with like Engineer and specifically with spare drone parts, but super niche. Same with Backup Mag, spare drone parts. Again, makes it better, but not particularly important. Gorag's Opus, honestly, probably equipment I should be taking more often because it gives you movement speed. Which in short bursts can be super valuable, especially against Mithrix, especially because you keep your equipment. He does not steal your equipment going into phase 4, meaning that the Gorag's Opus will give you movement speed during phase 4. Samarang and DML are 2 of the more consistent damage options, but I don't have them highly ranked for Umbral for some key reasons. Samarang is a pretty long cooldown. For an ability you're not really going to get the most value out of. Umbral Mythics isn't all that big, unlike some of the other bosses, so you're not going to get multiple ticks of the saw damage because it's not going to be in his hitbox for as long. DML is for an opposite reason, which means it just sucks. DML is just not that good. It's not a whole lot of damage, and the missiles aren't guaranteed to hit. The reason that these 2 are the damage items at the top of this tier list, and we'll go to these 2 at the same time, is because they have infinite range, which means they can be used on orbs, they can be used on Mithrix, they can be used on his clone, and more importantly, they can be used on the crystals in phase 2 and 3. Which is huge, because being able to dodge Mithrix while breaking the crystals in those phases is the difference between being set up and positioned for a good pizza and not, right? Then in the contextual high value, you have the other forms of damage resistance or dodging that aren't phase 4 proof in the way that these top 1 are, or are a one-time use, like the Seed of Life. Same position as the other lives. As like Dios. And Void Dios would be if I had made a Void tier list, which I didn't. I guess more content later, right? Egg is the best movement option when you get to choose when you use the egg. When it's not a random Baos hit, the egg is very valuable because it does give you 360-degree movement. And more importantly, non-momentum based movement, which means if you flip your camera and 180 degrees and hit Q immediately, you will immediately start moving in that direction, which means you do not have to worry about your momentum carrying you into a pizza slice, for instance, right? That's why I like egg specifically. I typically tend to turn my camera directly down because it gives me a better view rather than trying to turn in a direction because you might just turn yourself into pizza. But anyways, Blast Shower, I already spoke on. It could be argued in Context Pill, but because bans are so prevalent, and it does help because it does eat projectiles like orbs, like needles, like shockwaves. And then obviously spaces and bans are its key synergies that make it so valuable. And then the two defense items, the goats, Deus Ex Machina, Jade Elephant. Deus Ex Machina requires a skill check to hit, but it is a guaranteed parry and reduces all of the damage. Jade Elephant does not require a skill check to hit, but it has a much longer cooldown at 40 seconds, whereas if you hit the Deus Ex Machina, it's only 15 seconds. If you miss it, it's 60 seconds. And then the Jade Elephant is only a % damage reduction. It is a shit ton of damage reduction, but again, only a % damage reduction, which means it's not a guarantee that it will save you. I have died through a Jade Elephant before to Umbral Mithrix in phase 4. I remember specifically, it hurt my heart. I wanted to scream and shout and rip my head off. But yeah, you can die through the Jade Elephant, so it isn't always perfect. And obviously, Capacitor is the best damage option. Procs bans, deals with crystals, deals with orbs. You can set it up for a fire ban proc when he jumps in the middle. It is a short cooldown. It works well with multiple stacks. It's just perfect. It's a really, 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 really good equipment. And that's it, I think. Yeah. That is the tier list complete. And I think I'll call it for today's stream. I know it was super short. We only got one run and a tier list in today. But I was planning on editing anyways, so... I was planning on editing, and I wanted to get that video exported tonight. So I should try that loaded up now. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. I enjoyed the time. Hopefully the tier list helped. Any of you wanting to play Umbral? I don't know how many of you do. But anyways, have a good day. See you guys. Yeah, I hope.